All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 38.
Kaiser has been kidnapped.
Yeah, the little boy has been taken, and now the response. Reinhardt has everything planned out.
But there could be complications.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, with something like this, there's almost guaranteed to be complications.
They are trying to set this up with Fejan in order to be the reason by which they will escalate and invade the Alliance with regards to the conflict in general. But there are a couple people that are now in the know that weren't in the know before. Given that this plan is something that was kind of, fluctuating a little bit just earlier, we now have Hilda being in the know.
Right.
That's something that I would say is okay. Yeah, I think that's good. If anything, it'll build a little bit more trust between her and Reinhardt.
Right.
Kessler, however, I hope that's okay.
I do too.
Because I would say for the most part, he's dumb if he doesn't figure it out. Yeah, so in this case, it just shows that he's competent and that at the very least, he didn't immediately do anything about it because, he is a very important person with regards to, Reinhardt's, infrastructure on Odin. But what is that? How does he respond or react to that, if at all? Is that something that he just is that just something he just sits on and thinks about how he wants to respond to that? I think that's the safest option. But then you also have Ruenthal, who hasn't put it together but isn't dumb. So he's also realizing who would benefit the most, especially when he looks back at this with hindsight, maybe when they're invading the Alliance, and he's like, oh, yeah, I very much see who's benefiting from this here.
And how does that play into his ambitions and the idea that he's thinking about challenging Reinhardt at some point,
Yeah. Then we have Schumacher and Landsberg. They also are a little bit, more Schumacher than Landsberg.
Landsberg is... ignorance is bliss.
But the fact that he seems to be very quickly getting his nose pointed in the right direction as to how things could go, there's some ways things could switch up. And yet, according to the way that the Empire is responding to this, there's almost no way I can see them actually getting off Odin. Like, not really. There's going to it's going to leave a trail.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's the thing. No matter how they do it, it's not going to literally be the Alliance getting them out. So who's going to help them? Is Reinhardt going to let them escape, do some kind of finagling there? Is Schumacher not going to make things easy for them and he's going to draw more complications? Is Fejan going to have to, clean things up where it's like, we are going to let them escape by killing them, and then we take, the Kaiser, funnel him across the Alliance over a long period of time. Yeah. And then, look, he's in the Alliance. How did he get there? Who knows,
Mystery.
Yeah.
Lots of ways this could go.
Yeah. So, stuff's in motion, and, oh boy. Oh boy indeed. So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Okay, so Reinhardt and Trunit have made their speeches. Yang was the focal point this episode in him getting to be caught in the middle, reacting to two politicians masterfully playing their cards in ways that benefit not necessarily their nations entirely, but their grander agendas.
Right, and the fact that we don't know how, normally, I would think that this would end with something where, all right, they say what they're going to do, and then Yang is like, oh, because of that, we'll have to do this, right? And then it's like, that's the path moving forward, right?
Right.
But Yang didn't really, right? And there was some narrator stuff of yes, okay.
Because he divined correctly what,
what was going
Reinhardt's actual grand strategy was here. Something that is tied to the fate of the Alliance. He didn't say anything because of the potential, threat that could cause to the actual future of the Alliance.
Right. But then it's like, so then what is he going to do?
So I think what it is that we need to basically look at these speeches and go into each one here a little bit. Okay. So we have the refugee smugglers basically here who are, usually I would say just helping people get out of, the Empire or something like that. And,
no questions asked.
Yeah. And that's a very good service, I would say, that Fejan's able to provide. But they also are good at smuggling people through that are... VIPs, exactly. Yeah. And we get to see their whole thing with that there. We also get to see something from Rubinsky and Kesserling that I really liked. The idea that Kesserling saw there as being a potential flaw in Boltic sharing the actual plan with Reinhardt in a way that wasn't necessarily needed. Right. Which I think is cool, because the way I saw it before he said this was that Boltic actually did a good job at handling this, because I was already taking into account the fact that Reinhardt is terrifying and could have easily done a lot more direct, harmful things to Fejan because of this.
Right.
But because he didn't, I thought that was what he was talking about. But I think what Kesserling is saying is that because he didn't do anything like that, despite knowing how the plan was them manipulating Reinhardt,
then
Reinhardt has something even more devastating to Fejan that he's holding back because he can gain more out of us here. And the fact that Rubinsky was like, no,
we don't necessarily
need to jump ahead yet.
Yeah,
I think that is an aspect of what makes these two different. Rubinsky is not as hungry as Kesserling is. So Kesserling has that little bit of paranoia with his ambitions.
Yeah, like things could go badly.
Exactly. Like, so he's trying to plan and Machiavellian strategize everything, which leads to him manipulating things that might be innocuous. Rubinsky is seated at the crest of power. He has people above him, but he is very much focused on, I would say, stabilization.
Right, and managing rather than ascending. Yeah,
exactly. And I would say that is something that is going to lead to him having a very, until he doesn't, a very prosperous rule over Fejan. But Kesserling has hunger. Yeah. And that will lead to him attempting many things that could be detrimental to you, Rubinsky.
Well, and one of the things that I was kind of curious about here with this conversation, because with the whole conversation between Reinhardt and Boltic, there was a part of me that was wondering if there was something that, if Boltic wanted that conversation to happen, and that's why there was the anonymous tip about the locations of the people and things like that, right? Because Reinhardt's very smart, and if you're going up against an opponent that's very smart, then, it can be helpful to assume that they'll see through a lot of your strategies, right? So plans within plans and things like that.
Right.
So, with this conversation between Rubinsky and Kesserling, I was thinking, okay, this is where we see them in a private area where they have no reason to lie, where if they say, oh no, this is bad, then it actually is bad. But since there's the conflict between Rubinsky and Kesserling over that whole thing of, will you overthrow me, son? I'm going to overthrow you, Dad. Or, I'm totally not going to. I don't know how much we can trust that situation. There was the fact that Rubinsky was saying, no, we don't know yet. Is that actually him being like, I have information you don't?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What I want to say is rather interesting about the way that they then follow up that scene is that then Kesserling goes to Dominique St. Pierre.
Yeah.
And this is someone who I believed was more connected to Rubinsky. So are we getting a son is sleeping with the mistress of his father?
Right, as some kind of crazy, power fantasy trip thing or something?
Not only a power trip, but something of where he's like, no, I'm using her too.
Right.
Because the problem with this Kesserling is you're leaving yourself exposed as well.
Exactly, yeah.
You don't know who's using who then here.
And generally go by the amount of time associated with a person.
We don't know. That's the thing.
That's true.
So again, this could be something of where, oh no, Dominique St. Pierre is someone that could be like very much like loyal to Rubinsky. So
that's what I would think.
Yeah. But then there was this line here of just like the way it was set up. But she's like, "You'll be staying the night, won't you, Rupert?" Calling him by his first name. Mm-hmm. And then he says, "Even though I'm lacking as a substitute for my father,"
right?
Which is like,
he's aware of the situation, like,
well, right, but the idea of it being like, you just spelled out your whole character right there, and what I think is like quite telling with that is that's showing how vulnerable he's willing to be with her, in that he's sharing with her his plans and stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's how close they are. And then she's like, don't say stupid things. He's like, although that's just the sort of thing you'd say. Will you have a drink?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, oh, yes, first of all, a drink. Like, definitely. And they're like, oh, and a favor while I'm sober. Meaning, like, I'm going to end up, drunk with you, and, we'll spend the night probably. Maybe not, but, we'll see. And then he goes into business mode here of like, there's a church bishop that I want to use. And I love the way he like is so nonchalantly like, I don't know what it is, but there's almost this air of pride about him. The way he's like, he seems to be asceticism incarnate. It's like, okay, that seems a little bit dramatic, almost as a way to put it. And even though it's definitely a thing of where he's trying to, use this guy and stuff like that, he then drops the we here. Even if it is true, maybe we can change that given some time.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I feel like the way he speaks so cavalierly, the fact that he's also then, toying with the idea of also sleeping with her, someone who's very much with his father also, potentially, then ends up dropping, we can change that. Oh, yeah. Which in this context, I feel like has to include her. And it's not the my organization we kind of definition.
It's the you and me we. And the fact that like, the fact that he was like, while I'm sober, it's like, so, he's familiar with getting drunk with her, right?
Right.
Among other things. But that makes that just screams to me that like Rubinsky's just like, oh yeah, hey Dominique, could you warm up to him and stuff to just make sure you've got a literal finger on the pulse, and also just give me whatever information you can, right?
Right. And then
because in this kind of situation, when they're both very smart and they're both very sneaky and whatnot, experience is what I would tend to just sort of throw my bid to,
True.
And this is something where he knows there's a previous connection. So for what reason would he think that she wouldn't be doing something like that?
Right. And I think what it is that he's using her. He's got some kind of, he feels in control. He feels powerful here.
For some reason that we just, I guess we just don't know.
Then he says the thing of like, people are always trying to use each other in this, in Fejan. He says, I don't want to be used by anyone. Then he goes to take the drink, and they give this quick flash of her practically glaring at him of like
you dumb bitch.
Like you're using me, and you
oh, sure, that too.
That's the vibe I got from it.
Okay. Yeah, I just got the vibe of like, you stupid child, like you don't know anything about this world, kind of a thing.
I don't think it's necessarily that.
Okay.
I feel way more confident in Kesselring's ability to actually like be potentially the last man standing. Like the way he says the last man standing is going to be me in her presence.
Yeah,
he has something that's either very powerful.
Right.
Then.
Yeah, that's either very powerful or just uncharacteristically stupid.
Which I always assume characters are not stupid first. That is It's just something I don't think fits here. Then we have this funny little exchange with Attenborough and Julian talking about how Poplin and Shonkoff are trading women, basically. And it's hilarious because I'm so curious as to why Attenborough was like, hey, you know, we
did you hear?
Yeah, like why are it's just Attenborough just like, oh, this is just some good gossip, you know? And I guess it's funny in the respect that whole thing is going on, but then it's like, are you so bored that you're like, hey, did you hear? Like,
right. It felt like he was building up to some kind of punchline or lesson or something like that, where it's like, well, listen here, young grasshopper, you know?
Right.
Like,
because he is, 30 or something.
Right.
But the punchline was just that they had then caught each other going out of the girls' room of the one that they had recently been sleeping with. So that's I guess the punchline of it. But then I love how Poplin goes up and he's like, hey, well, why do the men get named while the women remain anonymous? And it's like, well, it's because you a hoe. And like that's the reason why.
Well, and also
we know Shunkov is sleeping around. We know that. But Poplin, he seems like the kind of person that it's fun to make fun of how much he's like this guy's actually getting some like a decent bit. Like, isn't that just ridiculous? And the fact that him and Shunkov could like maybe even accidentally come to blows because they just bump into each other. Yeah. Like, that would be so funny, right?
No, see, this is just seeding the fact that eventually there's going to be a 3-way or a 4-way or something like that.
Super Alliance Yang orgy. High Command orgy.
Yeah. Basically.
And even like
and then Yang's just gonna be like, Julian, just stay away from them.
Julian, and he's like, Julian, come drink with me. Like, you don't need to like get involved in that. Like,
oh man. But then we had the whole announcements.
Yeah, so we end up getting basically this Job Trunit like that bit was hilarious. The fact that he just shows up on screen and Yang has this moment of just like what I really appreciate about this show is I don't think that was meant to be funny. I don't think that was meant to be funny at all. I think it's just more of just showing. No. I'm with you, Jacob. But remember, this is an older show, so little bits of animation for characters reacting is more to show he's actually like, wait, whoa, this is serious. Like, maybe he was thinking that this was something that was like, yeah, we're gonna get the hoe drum propaganda kind of stuff. But then Trunit shows up and he's like,
oh, this really can't be
He's like, oh shoot, like this is serious. Like,
okay.
Because it started off with the kind of the automated, sounding like the cooperation of all citizens is requested. Please listen and be
there will be cake.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. Now he ends up going into the whole thing of like, yes, rejoice, yes.
Blah 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 propaganda. We're awesome and they're awful. And...
Yeah, exactly. The fact that he named this though, like he trying to like basically be like, yes, this happened. We announce it to everyone. Who do you think? Like, what do you think his end goal is here? Because if it militarizes the Alliance even more, just to solidify his power, that I think is a good, simple motivation to it.
Sure,
but I can't see him as being so short-sighted that he would think then that the Empire wouldn't respond in kind. So is his affiliation with the Church of Terra one where he thinks that they're actually playing Reinhardt and he's like, we're going to lead them into like a trap where we can then,
crazy tinfoil hat theory. But you know how Rubinsky was like, oh, we don't know yet, like he was maybe holding some cards in his hand still.
Okay.
What if it was something where, and that might potentially explain, why Trunit announces this? Because with the announcement, yes, he gets personal power within the Alliance, but if the Alliance then gets crushed, great, you just sunk your own ship, right?
Right.
Even if you got full supreme executive power of said ship.
Right.
But if he's colluding with Fejan and they're doing something there and
that's unaware by maybe Kesserling even.
Right, exactly. Because you probably would want to keep this very close to the chest so that Reinhardt doesn't get wind of it, because he's already made the point that I could just, let people know, Fejan orchestrated this, so we're gonna,
Yeah. Like, know what this also could be that's like very much in line with that?
This
is just the politicians each trying to get their speech out as fast as possible so they can take control of the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, this is very much the kind of thing of breaking news, quick. We need to ship out our propaganda as fast as possible so that we can get the masses on our side before the other people then do the same thing and get the masses on their side.
Right.
So maybe this was something where Trunet was actually being smart and he's like, crap, division in the Alliance is coming. If Reinhardt...
Sure, get out in front of it, basically.
Get out in front of it. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is something where Trunet had to do this.
Sure. Okay.
It may be just how he did it.
It kind of forced his hand and... Okay. I can see that.
And yeah, he's just putting on a good face. I would love that because it makes Trunet to be basically competent but panicking in his boots.
And I love that. Like, I love the idea of him just like the transmission ending or whatever, and then he's like, okay, this is...
Yeah, which doesn't seem to be the case necessarily.
Probably not.
Because we see him when Reinhardt makes his speech and he's like,
But I can dream.
Yeah, we can dream, right?
Eventually we'll get that, and it will be wonderful.
I think it's more of us just tapping into the beyond of that scene eventually when we'll see him basically just being like,
groveling and whimpering. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah. So he goes very much into the, he will extinguish the light of freedom and democracy and all that. But his whole speech here, which then bringing up the...
Remscheid.
Yeah, the former High Commissioner of the Empire... that was on Fejon, being the one that then starts this whole thing of having a government in exile, specifically for Yosef of the old
regime,
Golden Bomb dynasty,
and the Galactic Empire legitimate government. It's like no, we're the real one. Like
right now, this is definitely a thing that's happened throughout history, where you have a ruler of some kind of regime that gets defeated and then flees and goes to some place where they'll be not executed or imprisoned or something like that, and then starts up their own government so that they can then return to their place and then try and take it back. There's lots of instances like that, but the thing that usually is the case with that is that the reason why they do that specifically is to encourage division in the place where they were just defeated, deposed, or they left. Basically, they fled. So in this case, what it seems like Merkatz and specifically his XO are kind of like worried about is, will they be actually able to give that was Schneider, right?
Yes.
Will they be able to actually do much to divide the empire at this point?
Right, because everybody kind of loves Reinhardt, or most everybody.
Right. It doesn't seem like it's going to be that effective.
Right.
So them bringing all this stuff there to create this legitimate government or what have you feels like a form of posturing just for the sake of things there. And since Trunet is involved there... Maybe this is the part where he's like, yes, this will make us feel stronger, and that we have basically an opportunity for some measure of peace with the Empire as long as we defeat the evil Reinhardt and his gross dictatorship. Which is
good luck.
Which is interesting because I find it really interesting about the speed at which the characters in the show, even because we were thinking this as well, this is going to divide the Alliance really quickly. I don't think this is going to be something where it divides the Empire. I think it's going to just rebound and divide the Alliance in some way. So is that also why Trunet maybe did his speech, is that he's realizing,
I need to try and unify us a little bit?
Or I need to get that in line before it gets out of control. So he's essentially clamping down on free speech and people that will oppose it by being like, how could you be such an anti-humanitarian child? Don't you have any empathy?
Right. And I love that was brought up of like there's not a lot that people can say out loud that isn't, immediately like shut down because, well, how dare you?
That's treasonous. Yeah. That's establishment.
It's cruel. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I gotta say, the whole thing of where they started to make the comparisons of how this is some kind of like, idealized, adventure, and then literally Poplin is like, well, okay.
I didn't sign up to be a character
now
in
we're
an
the
anime.
stars of a TV anime series.
Right.
I just want to have at some point like those like moments because like JoJo's has moments like this where it's like if you just took this clip or this scene out of context, you'd be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This is one of those where you just take those 3 seconds and be like, great, now we're the stars of a TV anime series. And you're like, wait a minute, is this a comedy or...
Yeah, exactly. For a serious show like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, in a very serious part.
Very serious part where a soldier is throwing their beret on the ground in frustration because they're
Why should we have to risk our lives protecting the Golden Bomb family? That's a great point.
That is a very good point. And what I love about this specifically here is that if they didn't say anything about it, then they wouldn't have to. And this is part of the weird things I would say about having, this kind of a government structure where they have their humanitarian aspect being such an important part of it, because on some level they came from a good foundation in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But because of how much the government has shifted away from that into like excessive militarization because of this eternal war they've been in.
Right.
The means by which they do their humanitarian stuff, quote unquote, is more to just further their military industrial complex. It doesn't have anything to do with, that at all. So this kind of an argument is something that people are naturally going to think about because no one really cares in that regard about the actual humanitarian stuff when you get into the authority levels of this government, because that's not what's being perpetuated. It's the military. It's the, how are we going to win this war? How are we going to bring freedom to the galaxy?
Whether they like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So I love this little debate here in that, it's something that I totally think they could have, harbored the kid.
Sure.
They would not kill him or anything like that. But this announcement, puts soldiers like Poplin in a very uncomfortable position where he's like, I am not getting a choice here at all, and we're just stirring up more conflict by doing this. Why can't we just use this as an opportunity to sue for peace? He doesn't straight out say it. He's more talking about it from the place of anger and pain, and that he knows probably so many people that have died. And he's like, why? Yep. Where's my choice in all of this?
Right.
Aren't we the Free Planets Alliance? He's like, I get it, I'm a soldier, but it's so good.
What was that line where it was like the freedom to the...
That's what Shrunkov says later. We'll get into that.
That was so good.
Yeah, that's later. We'll get into that for sure. In the part where they actually start talking about how they're going to respond to the situation, I love how much Yang deduces correctly as to how this is not only a really awkward situation for them, but the timing of it is perfect for Reinhardt.
Oh yeah.
I love how quickly he uses the Lippstadt conflict as the means by which he's thinking about this as if Reinhardt has phases of a grand plan. And he's like, he completed his previous phase, which was, getting rid of the nobles. So their whole power base is, ruined.
Right.
Then he ends up solidifying his empire, via his new policies. Then he realizes, wait, my people are happy, but I want to take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
My people don't want to take over the galaxy if they're happy.
Exactly.
So
make them mad.
How can I do that? Whoa, here's a really good way to do it.
Yeah.
I just love how quickly he figured this out by using things that the show had already established. Would have made this a thing that would have been a better time for Yosef to split off. Why wasn't he involved in the Lippstadt thing?
Great point.
Yeah, and exactly.
It's not like a 7-year-old decides on their own that they're going to go run away and seek asylum,
Yeah, exactly. So, it's so genius, because imagine if the Lippstadt group Lippstadt League, I think it was called, had actually tried to take Yosef And they like, the Alliance has no idea whether or not they tried. All they know is that they didn't actually succeed, which means that if that massive schism within the Empire that was so big that they needed to kickstart a revolution inside, a civil war inside the Alliance in order to keep them distracted from this, and then some terrorists, took him, whoever they are, whatever. The Alliance, it's like, wow. I
love how it's something where, like, it's that whole know thy enemy kind of a thing, where if you can know in a very concrete way what your enemy's after, right, or just what another person's after, right, and you know that they are, how they think. Right. Then and something like this, straightforward is best, even if you use some underhanded tactics and everything, right? Then it's not hard to figure out what they do, because just assume they've got a really good plan. What would be the best plan for them to have in this situation? Do this. Oh, hey, that lines up with what happened. It's probably their plan,
Yeah, and then they get into this whole debate regarding how people are actually being like, well, we should maybe practice some caution here, but because of how Knight Syndrome has taken over in Heinesen, which I love the fact that they called it that. This is something where they get into some of the mythic aspects of this, where they realize we're getting caught up in a fiction here. This is a story, a narrative that is being spun because it makes us into heroes.
Right.
Real life doesn't work like that.
Nope.
It makes great entertainment, but
definitely
no, it's definitely not the way real life works. And then I loved, I think it's Kazerne bringing it up. He's basically saying, hey, people are urging caution, but when they open their mouths, they get branded as inhumane. And it's like, as soon as you say it's a 7-year-old child, most people's logic and reason logic flies out the window. It'd be pretty. If it were a pretty 16 or 17-year-old girl, their enthusiasm would probably be even higher.
Like, I love Shankoff's like just taking it to the next extreme, just to sort of point out some of the ridiculousness of it.
Yep. And then I loved this point as well. This is something where, if you think about the numbers side of things, the Alliance can never beat a united empire. They just can't. And that whole line of, if the 25 billion citizens of the Empire who've been liberated by Duke Lohengram, then end up, if they end up, going through with this, they'll never forgive the Alliance for joining with this reactionary force. Right. Never. And then he's like, does that mean we'll end up fighting an Imperial People's Army led by Duke Lohengram? And he's like, wow, I'm about to be on the wrong side of history here. And that just ties in more into the whole thing of Fejon being like, let's eventually just force Yang to need to take over the Alliance. Let's remove all his other options. Merkatz was showing some signs in this episode of being kind of connected to that old nobility regime. Did you notice that? Where he was kind of like, the Kaiser, he's this young boy. And if they really do care about him, why are they forcing him into this vortex of war and conflict and all that? And then also kind of in the later bits of like, he's not
I'm loyal to the Kaiser, but I want to live my life out as a subject.
Right, exactly. So I feel like there might even be some validity of like him eventually being super close to the Kaiser and, actually giving him some like needed, parenting.
I mean, I would love to see that. That feels like the whole thing of what should have happened with Ned and Joffrey, basically. True. Yeah. I don't think that's going to be able to end up happening just because of all the craziness that's about to go down, right? But if only, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I liked Shunkov's little question here, saying, if you think about it, supply and demand are in perfect sync, aren't they? He's like, right, the basis of Duke Lohengram's power is the people, so he doesn't need the Kaiser's authority anymore.
Right.
Meanwhile, Count Remscheid and the others must recycle that authority for their government in exile. The way that Merkatz kind of takes this, and the XO's kind of like, oh, okay. Then they kind of just skip over it. Like, no one else really kind of addresses it here. it's kind of like them just saying, yeah, of course that's the case.
Right.
But I think it's Shunkov kind of bringing up the point of, hey, you guys, how do you really feel about this? And this is something that I think is one of the wonderful things about Shunkov. He speaks his mind freely. He's the one that basically, you know, was a part of the
Goldenbaum dynasty.
No. The cool imperial military
the Rosenritter.
group.
Yeah.
The Rosenritter, right.
Yeah.
Who are Imperials
that left
right. and are now this specialized group in the Alliance military.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have that kind of blind loyalty to the Alliance, but they also have almost a little bit of a vindictive streak against the Empire.
Oh, sure.
Because they're like, yeah, we
had to leave.
We had to leave. You guys made our lives, you know,
awful.
crazy, and now we're in this stuck kind of in the middle bit here. So when he's bringing up in some ways the way this all just falls back into the cycle here, it's like him saying something that a bunch of the other soldiers, and specifically then, you know, Mercats and XO kind of have that like, we don't need to go into that right now.
This complicates things potentially, and you know, how exactly is it going to?
Well, yeah, but I'm meaning that they would say something like this, but he's kind of mocking it. Like,
sure.
Shunkov is kind of getting into the idea that you guys realize how, you know, like kind of powerless we are in this setup here, and right? I don't know. He feels like a revolutionary that's just slowly budding, slowly but surely. Like
Shunkov or Merkats?
Shunkov.
Oh, it's Shunkov. I think he's already ready to go. I think he's been ready to go for a while.
I know, but he's trying to sow seeds of that into everyone at the table.
And one of the things that I love is in some ways by him bringing up like, so Merkats, where do you fall in this? You know, that almost feels like it's something where it can dispel some of the tensions maybe of the other people in the room of wondering, oh, do we need to potentially worry about Merkats now? Because he's bringing it out into the light, right? Sure. And he's asking it in a relaxed, comfortable way, you know?
Yeah. The whole free speech, free thought little thing there is quite terrifying.
Oh, man.
One of the things that's so important to make the distinction of, though, is that they're being soldiers. They are used as tools in a lot of ways.
Yep.
For the service of the, you know, hopefully the people, you know. But the idea that Shunkov is trying to kind of get Yang to realize, hey, you're not fighting for any kind of free nation anymore, dude. You're already on the wrong side of history.
Right.
So
if you're thinking about what's, you know, right, I mean, it's a complicated situation, but your best bet might actually be to change sides.
Or at the very least start creating a little bit more of a place that you would be proud to defend.
Right.
And that has its own set of problems.
Yep.
I loved how he brought up his story of childhood and then said something that I completely mischaracterized him for.
Right.
He says, you see, I'm a man who has already lost his homeland once. And I'm like, yeah, and you would hate to lose it a second time.
Right.
But no. He says, if once becomes twice, I'll be neither surprised nor grieved. This is a man that is like, oh yeah, I don't care at all about the Alliance in that regard.
Like, I feel like the only reason he's not jaded is because he takes it in stride.
Right.
There's nothing like, because in order to be jaded, it has to be personal, you know? Whereas it's not personal for him anymore, right? It's just, I won't be surprised or grieved. So quite frankly, you know, that's why I'm just sort of keep mentioning this to you. You know, like, just saying.
Okay. Then we have Reinhardt's speech.
Yeah. Now,
and let's get into that bit there. He says they'll receive suitable recompense. The ambitious men of the Free Planets Alliance who collude and scheme with them to challenge us in a war against the peace and order of the universe will not avoid a similar fate. Now, what he's relating to here is he's basically saying there are terrorists
Right.
That yes, that they are definitely hiding amongst the Free Planets Alliance and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is good here is that he is not actually, I would say, he's not really calling out Fejon at all.
I did twice now in this episode. I paused because I saw Imperial High Commissioner to Fejon.
Right.
That's not that they are the person with Fejon that is the Imperial, talks to the Imperials. It's the Imperial person that talks to Fejon.
Right.
But it was something where I was like, wait, does that mean he's going to say, oh yeah, all the people who colluded with this?
But he is implying that a little bit. It's just a thing of where he's not actually saying that at all.
Right.
In what his words actually say. Now,
because it's the Alliance and the Old Empire that are colluding.
Right. Now, this is the part where I think he might actually be relating to that a little bit. It says, hereafter, when the Grand Bishop is shown. Hereafter, no matter how great the volume of blood, bear in mind that the ones responsible are these foolish criminals and their accomplices.
Yeah.
Now, that's the part where I think he's basically saying, if you stand against me in this regard there, I will drown the galaxy in an ocean of blood.
And you brought this on yourselves.
Exactly.
Which is funny because in a lot of ways it's also kind of true, because while Reinhardt also helped the stuff happen, Fejon also caused it to happen, which makes it kind of seem like a veiled sort of warning to Fejon, like if they ended up getting turned against them. But also, if Trunit was orchestrating things with Fejon and whatnot through the Church of Terra, that connection and things like that,
Yep. And then we had the Chekhov's foreshadowing with Shunkov saying it's those damn politicians just thinking that because the fortress is there they can do whatever they want. Then Yang kind of looks at him and then pivots to the side and has the narrator say, at the time Yang was considering one more possibility.
Yeah.
So how quickly do you think he's going to do anything with Fejon?
Oh God, I don't know about.
Do you think he even can?
I don't know.
He's a military guy. He's not a politician.
I don't know what it will be, but Yang is about to do something, and it's going to be crazy.
But the thing is, I don't know if he is actually going to do anything. I think it's more the fact that he's thinking here, because he doesn't know. He doesn't know any of this stuff. He's just trying to see if he can outthink this whole thing. But yeah,
I don't know. I love that this show is able to have each episode seemingly just be build up, and yet it feel like it keeps going to crazier heights. While the actual culmination and craziness that will result from it, we still haven't fully seen yet. I love it.
Yeah, but y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yes, I did write a sci-fi novel called Battle Lines. If somehow you haven't heard of it before, or you just have been wanting to check it out, the link to Amazon where you can purchase it is in the description below.
So yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.